The Show Me Cannabis Podcast.
Hi YouTube, this is Show Me Cannabis Executive Director John Payne. We're recording this just a couple of days before New Year's, but we wanted to take a chance to look back now at 2014 and all the accomplishments that we've made in cannabis law reform over the past year. So the number one issue that we want to start out with today is the legalization of cannabis in several other states outside of Missouri. Although it does not have a direct impact on us here in the Show Me State, the states of Alaska, Oregon, as well as the District of Columbia all voted to legalize cannabis. And that will have a powerful impact on the national conversation about this issue. When voters in any state look around and see other states have legalized cannabis and can evaluate those systems, it makes what was once thought of as impossible to be more real and something that we can strive for here in Missouri. One of the exciting things that happened here in the state of Missouri for cannabis law reformers is that we finally stopped playing defense. For many, many years, the only thing that we could do in our legislature was stop bad bills from being passed. But this year, finally, several bills that we supported actually passed out of the state legislature and became law. One of the probably lesser known ones is a provision that will allow former drug felons who have completed their time to apply for food stamps. Now, obviously we're not wanting everyone in the state to be on food stamps, but there was an unjust prohibition on people who have had a drug felony to ever receive food stamps for the rest of their lives. That was a prohibition that did not exist for any other types of felony. So a robber, a rapist, a murderer, after they completed their time, they could apply for food stamps, but not somebody who had possessed, say, 50 grams of cannabis. That is a provision of the law that did not make sense, and it was finally repealed this year. So that is one step to making cannabis users more equal under the law in the state of Missouri that we helped pass. Show Me Cannabis also laid the groundwork for what we hope will be the biggest change in Missouri cannabis law in the state's history by filing an initiative petition to legalize, regulate, and tax cannabis in a manner similar to alcohol with the Secretary of State. Now, this would not go on the ballot until 2016, but we filed it on the first possible day we could, which was the day following the 2014 elections back in November. Now, at present, we are still awaiting ballot language on that initiative, but once we have that, we'll go and conduct scientific polling to assess the viability of it. But regardless, we are committed to pursuing the broadest possible reform that we believe can pass on Election Day 2016. And that process has already been started here in 2014. One of the biggest changes in Missouri's cannabis laws this year was the revision of the criminal code. This was a huge bill that had been years in the making, but it contains a few provisions that are important for cannabis law reformers. First, it eliminates jail time as a possibility for people who possess under 10 grams of cannabis. Before this, you could be punished by up to a year in jail or prison just for possessing any amount of cannabis. Now that will be a fine instead of jail time. It also removes the prior and persistent drug offender statute, which said that if you have 3 or more previous convictions, that you can be tried as a prior and persistent drug offender, and any sentence that is imposed has to be imposed without parole or probation. It is under that law that Jeff Mazansky, who is currently serving a life without parole sentence for a nonviolent cannabis-only offense, was sentenced. That provision is now gone, and so thanks to that, we do not believe that there will ever be another person sentenced to die in prison in the state of Missouri for cannabis. The biggest change to Missouri's cannabis laws this year, I believe, was the passage of the CBD Bill. Now, this is going to be a very limited program that will allow the use of high CBD, low THC oil to treat people with intractable epilepsy. So it's a very limited number of patients. The Department of Health and Senior Services only estimates about 800 people will actually sign up for the program. And it's a very limited type of cannabis that can be used. However, it does lay the groundwork, I believe, for future medical reforms down the line, because the legislature has overwhelmingly endorsed the idea that cannabis does have medical value. So once they've acknowledged that there's a medical value for people with intractable epilepsy, why not for people with cancer or for multiple sclerosis, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a number of ways that I believe that this can be expanded, and that I think the legislature might be ready to pass a broader medical reform in the next session. Thanks for joining us this week to look back at 2014. Join us in the next 2 weeks when we look ahead to 2015 at both our legislative activities and talk about some of the common questions and comments on our initiative. Thanks.
Show Me Cannabis, fighting to reform Missouri cannabis laws. Find us at show-mecannabis.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Together, we can reform Missouri cannabis law.